Hello, and it's Ingrid Thompson here, and we're reading from So You Want to Start a Business, the 7-Step Guide to Create, Start and Grow Your Own Business. And in the first part of Chapter 2, we looked at the idea, choosing one main idea to work on. What is the problem that you really solve with the business idea, and is it simple to develop? So if you haven't listened to that, you might want to jump back and have a listen to that one. The next part we talk about, is it better than the rest? So we're looking at the idea of competition, and we're talking about IP. Seriously, each of these episodes can stand on their own. All of this is Business 101. I know that if you're listening to this, you've got an idea for a business, or perhaps you're in the early stages of business. Super excited to work with you. If you want to jump over to my website, healthynumbers.com.au, there's some terrific resources there that you can download a checklist. You could take the quiz. And if you want to buy a whole copy of the book, you know where to go to buy books. So we're going to continue now with Chapter 2, and we're going to take a look at who else has the same idea that you do. Who is your competition? And we're going to look at this idea of how can the competition help you? So the question we want to ask, is your idea better than the rest? I live about a 10-minute walk from my nearest suburban train station along a busy main road in an inner city suburb of Sydney, a high street. A few months ago, I wanted to have my hair washed and dried because I was going to an event, and I wanted that look that only you can get at the hairdresser. I thought, I'll drop into one of the hairdressers on my way home and see if I can book an appointment. One of them is bound to have an available appointment on a Wednesday afternoon. If you'd asked me, how many hairdressers do you think there are in this particular stretch of road, I probably would have said maybe 6. Do you know how many there are? There are 19 hairdressing salons and 4 barbershops in the 6 blocks between the train station and the road that I live on. Isn't it interesting what we notice and what we don't? I knew I had a few hairdressers in the area, but I certainly wouldn't have said 23 hair-related businesses. That's a lot of competition. So when you're thinking about your business idea, there are 2 ways to look at your competition. There's the direct competition and there's the indirect competition. Direct competition is made up of the businesses that offer the same products or services that you do. So in my example, each of the 19 hairdressers offered pretty much the same thing in that they could all wash, cut, colour and dry hair. Indirect competition is made up of all the other products and services that are on offer to satisfy a need or a want of a customer. So for my hairdresser example, washing my own hair at home would have been a form of indirect competition. In another example, I've been working with a boutique wine producer. In the past, the wine industry thought their direct competition was other wine producers, and that their indirect competition was beer, spirits, cocktails, and alcopops. In the recent years, the wine industry has had to come to realize that indirect competition is pretty much any drink, and not just alcoholic drinks. Many businesses find it relatively straightforward to identify the direct competition. It's identifying the indirect competition that's really important. In fact, the more comprehensive your examination of the indirect competition, the more insight you will have into what is needed to make your business stand out in a crowded marketplace. I believe that competition is a good thing. Being in an industry where there are others offering similar products or services is really helpful when it comes to making your business a success. Trying to create a whole new business for something that has never been done before is incredibly hard work. Have you ever watched one of those very large aircraft trying to take off along a runway? Maybe you've been sitting in one of them and you've felt the power that it takes to lift that aircraft off the ground. Starting any business is already like getting an A380 or a Boeing 747 off the ground. And trying to start a business doing something that has never been done before is even more difficult. If you have competition, you can analyze it. You won't be surprised to know that I have clients thinking about starting a yoga school, and one in particular loves yoga. She's studied yoga for many years, and she dreams of running a yoga school and retreats which will make a difference in other people's lives. She's identified her direct competition as other yoga schools, but her indirect competition is not so obvious. So far, she's identified Pilates, gyms, private fitness training, running clubs, swimming, aqua aerobics, meditation centres, writing retreats, weight loss programs, bushwalking, rock climbing, whitewater rafting, horse riding, sitting on the couch, going out for a glass of wine with a friend. And this list is not exhausted. You may even think of some things that we haven't even thought of. I know she's certainly adding to her list. The point is to understand what else is out there in order to know your place in the scheme of things and to make your idea more attractive than all the alternatives. Just recently, I met an art dealer who specialises in Australian Aboriginal art. He was telling me that people often say to him, "Oh, this is amazing. You should take this art to New York." And he said to me, "Why on earth would I do that? Why would I go somewhere where I don't know any of the people there? They don't know who I am. They have never heard of me or my gallery. Most people don't know anything about Australian Aboriginal art. Art is a luxury purchase that people make from someone they know, someone they like, and someone they trust. It would most likely be years before anybody actually bought anything from me. The education and the relationship building process would take me years." I thought how very insightful and wise, and I can imagine there would be many people who, in the same situation, would jump at the chance to run to New York, and they may end up being successful, but then again they may not. It's tough enough starting a business without venturing into a brand new environment. The key is to understand your business so that you can analyze your competition and figure out how to achieve the best chance of success. Working in a business where there are already successes helps your chances. How do you offer the same product or service in a way that is different, that is unique, that makes it yours? Many years ago, I accepted a contract to work on a very successful family-run coffee roasting company. One of the owners, Paul, had always wanted to have his own cafe. He built a physically beautiful space and served the very best coffee and food. And while he was gifted at sourcing and roasting coffee, at a time when small boutique coffee roasters were a bit of a rarity in Sydney, he didn't really know much about staffing, managing and running a cafe. And after a few years, the family decided to sell the cafe, and I was contracted to prepare it for sale. While Paul didn't have a lot of experience in running cafes, he did have a solid understanding of business in general and how to serve his customers, and he knew how to make great coffee. One day we were having a conversation about a new American coffee chain that was about to open its first store in Sydney. The industry was nervous. In the US, Starbucks on every corner, and our local newspapers were full of stories about the end of the local coffee shop. This was just before the Sydney Olympics in 2000, and people were convinced there was a coffee takeover on its way. There was a genuine concern about what it would mean for the local industry. And I remember asking Paul what he thought about Starbucks coming to Australia. And he said, "Competition is good because it keeps everybody on their toes." It's too easy for a business to become complacent and forget what really matters. Customers matter, and our only reason for existing is to please and service our existing customers and the customers we don't yet have. What a terrific answer to my question. I felt it was a privilege to work with someone with such an attitude and an approach. You have to foster this attitude in your own business and believe that competition is good because it keeps you on your toes. That's what can drive you to raise your idea above the rest. It can also encourage you to create a niche or a niche. Niche is a term that is used in the ecological biology to define an organism's role in an ecosystem. Not only does a niche include the environment a given organism lives in, it also includes the organism's job in that environment. So what a niche or a niche in terms of business? What does that mean? Seth Godin talks about the purple cow and standing out from the crowd. You may have heard of the black jelly bean concept. This is the idea that while there are many colours of jelly beans, there are people who just want the black ones. So why is it considered important to find your niche or your niche? We are told it will contribute to business success. As the experts say, you cannot be all things to all people. If you try, you end up not being particularly attractive to anyone. Niching means focusing on one segment of the market where you will have less competition. When I think about the 19 hairdressers that exist in happy competition along the 6 blocks of the road between my train station and my home, one explanation for their continued success is that each has their own niche in the hairdressing market. When I look at any street with a string of cafes all doing well, I believe the reason is because there's enough customers for all of them within each individual niche. To use the ecological definition above, they each have a job in their environment. So how do you feel about identifying a niche for your business? Let's take a look at the benefits. It allows you to build a strong presence in your market as the expert in your particular area. It makes it easier to attract your ideal clients, the ones who want exactly what you offer. It helps you position your business and communicate what your brand stands for. And it helps you maximize the money that you will spend on marketing because you know exactly where to focus your campaigns. There's no rush to define your niche. It may end up being something that takes a little while to define, or it might be something that you're very clear about right from the beginning. It's up to you. Bear in mind, if you identify your niche early, it will affect your appraisal of your direct competition. If you don't identify your niche early, assessing your competition may direct you towards a gap in the market where you could create a niche. Here we go with another activity. Assess the competition. Consider the following. What industry are you in? Do you have a niche? What are your direct competitors? What are your indirect competitors? For each of the direct and indirect competitors, identify the following. What do they do that makes them successful? Why do customers choose their product or service? Then consider these questions. What can you do to differentiate your business from others in the industry? What is not currently being offered in this industry? Is there a gap in the market where you could niche? Once you've established whether your idea is really useful, whether it's financially viable, and whom you're up against, you can look at whether you should consider any IP issues. The question is, who owns the IP? So IP stands for intellectual property. Depending on what sort of business you're considering starting, it could actually be a very valuable business asset. It's important to understand what it is and how to protect it. If you have an idea that will lead you to develop a new product or a new service, this is something that belongs to you. In order to own the IP, it needs to be registered. In Australia, you would register with IP Australia. Registering with IP Australia does not provide international protection, however. You need to apply separately for each country. So there are 4 different types of IP protection. One is a patent. If you create a device, a method, a process, or a substance that is new, innovative, and useful, you can apply for a patent that will give you exclusive rights to that invention for a period of time. Patents can be legally enforced. Another type of IP protection is a trademark. This is a symbol, letter, number, word, phrase, picture, logo, even a sound, smell, aspect of packaging that is used to distinguish the goods and services of one business from another business. It's important to remember that registering a business name is not the same as securing a trademark. Designs. Patents relate to function, where design tends to relate to form. So design would feature shape configuration or patterns that give a product a unique appearance. The design must be distinctive and new in order to be registered. And then there's copyright. You can copyright works but not ideas. Copyright is most commonly applied to books, films, art, music, and sound recordings. There are free and automatic legal rights given to authors and creators of original works. Sometimes people believe that small business IP doesn't apply to them. But being small doesn't mean you don't have legitimate IP that requires protection. Here's some tips when it comes to protecting your idea. If you think you have an idea that is very new and innovative, it's best not to talk too much to too many people about that idea before you have explored the IP registration process. If you do need to discuss your idea with other people, it's important to have a legally binding non-disclosure agreement to protect your idea. Keep records and documentation of the development of your idea. And if you engage contractors or employees in your business, it's important to include clauses in the contract regarding IP and confidentiality. Here are a couple of examples to bear in mind. If you contract a photographer to take some photographs for you, it's important to know who owns the photographs at the end of the agreement. If you contract a designer to create a logo or book cover, it's important to know who owns these designs and have it established in contract. It's easy to believe that you own them because they feel like yours, but you always need to check the fine print. If you're currently working for someone else, check the contract of your employment. If you develop something while you're working for someone else, it's important to be clear about who owns that IP. If you're working on a side project while you have a job working for someone else, you might want to have a clause included that says anything you work on your side project is yours to own. There is a provision under Australian law that even if you're working on something in your side project in your holidays, the IP may still belong to your employer. Best to check with the business's HR manager and an independent HR specialist. And our last activity for this chapter, protecting your idea. Consider whether you might need to register IP and obtain patents or trademarks. Head to your country's relevant website to discover the detailed process you'll need to follow. The best way to find information for your country is to head to Google. Type in the name of your country and register IP or trademark, and that will give you a list of the agencies for your country. So that brings us to the end of Chapter 2, Your Idea. We've looked at all the different aspects to consider when it comes to your idea, and it's time to turn to Chapter 3, which is your clients. Who are the people that this idea is for? So we shall leave Chapter 2 here, and in another episode we will be reading Chapter 3. So if you have any questions, please email me directly, ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au. If you want to grab your copy of the book, head to wherever you buy your books online or head to your local bookstore so that you can ask them to order you a copy. You can get a Kindle copy on Amazon or wherever you get your Kindle copies. So you want to start a business. My name is Ingrid Thompson. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you so well in your venture, in your having your own business. And if you have any questions, as I said, just email me directly. Ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au.